It is a great joy to be with all of you today. Welcome to Reflections with Pastor Ellen. That's me, and it is my great joy to share with you on this beautiful Sunday morning in the Milwaukee area on this Labor Day weekend. There has always been, well, not always. Always and never aren't necessarily the best words for us to use. But there has been a strong connection between faith and labor throughout the history, not only in the US, but in other countries. And in 1908, the Methodist Episcopal Church, that's the forerunner, one of them, of the current United Methodist Church, created the 1908 Social Creed. And on this Labor Day weekend, I want to share it with you. The Methodist Episcopal Church stands for equal rights and complete justice for all people in all stations of life, for the principle of conciliation and arbitration in industrial dissensions, for the protection of the worker from dangerous machinery, occupational diseases, injuries, and mortality, for the abolition of child labor, for such regulation of the conditions of labor for women as shall safeguard the physical and moral health of the community, for the suppression of the sweating system, for the gradual and reasonable reduction of hours of labor to the lowest practical point, with work for all, and for that degree of leisure for all which is the condition of the highest human life, for a release from employment 1 day in 7, for a living wage in every industry, for the highest wage that each industry can afford, and for the most equitable division of the products of industry that can ultimately be devised, for the recognition of the Golden Rule and the mindset of Christ as the supreme law of society and the sure remedy for all social ills. Over 100 years ago, as people of faith, including Methodist Episcopals, worked together to establish child labor laws, to put an end to child labor. They marched in the street. They were persecuted, ridiculed, victims of harm and persecution. But they persevered, working together to transform our communities, to make them safer, to bring healing, to bring wholeness, to bring hope. Working together to make conditions better for everyone. Faith and labor, faith and unions, unions and faith. In 2012, I was in England on a Wesleyan pilgrimage following the tracks of our founders of this particular denomination, Charles and John Wesley. And I happened to go to Centennial Hall, which is a Methodist Episcopal church in England, in London, next door to Westminster Abbey. And they were celebrating their 100th anniversary. Now, this was a historic place. Before that, it was the birth of the United Nations, had met in the basement of the facility. There were tunnels to keep people safe during the war. This was a place built on the heart of the community for the well-being of all. And I was greeted with open arms and a welcome and questions and curiosity. And yet there was a gentleman there who asked me, "Where did you say you're from?" And I said, "The United States," not expecting anybody to know much, more in detail, because I'm not certain I would know regions, or I wouldn't know regions or states or counties. But the gentleman persisted, and he said, "Where?" And I said, "The Midwest." And he said, "Where?" And I said, "Wisconsin." And he said, "Ah, Wisconsin, where they're taking away worker rights." And I went, wow, how in tuned they were to the threat to labor, to the threat of people. For injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, is it not? And labor unions were created to bring about necessary changes in the workplace, because business owners weren't focused on the best things for workers. There was a lot of abuse there, and there still is today. One of the most common forms of abuse is what we call wage theft, where people are not paid all that they are due, all that they're promised. The pandemic has shown us that there are still unsafe working conditions. Somebody shouldn't die just because they went to work. And there are so many things that need to be addressed so that all may have life and have it abundantly. In the book of Genesis, the second story, Adam is created and charged with God took the man and set him down in the Garden of Eden to work the ground and keep it in order. Union, our labor and management working together in one. Is it not true the one who climbed up also climbed down to the valley of earth? And the one who climbed down is the one who climbed back up to the highest heaven. He handed out gifts above and below, filled with heaven with his gifts, filled earth his gifts. He handed out gifts of apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher, to train Christ's followers in skilled servant work. That comes to us from the letter to the Ephesians. God creates work. God blesses the work. God called Adam and Eve to tend and manage the garden. And even when they were sent out, they knew that labor would be a part of their blessing. And the letter to the Ephesians says, all are bestowed with these gifts, talents, and graces, these skills that are necessary for the community as a whole. People are the greatest asset that any organization has. People need to be cared for. People need to be provided the resources that they need so that they can be the most gifted and talented and creative and skilled. Faith and labor walked hand in hand, marched hand in hand over 100 years ago to bring about dramatic change. And the relationship has changed over the years, and we've seen intentional efforts over the decade to break unions, to break collaboration. As United Methodists, we believe that workers and management should be able to talk together, should be able to negotiate, should be able to develop plans for the safety and well-being of every person. We believe the bottom line is about people. It's not about profits. And so as we gather this Labor Day weekend, I invite all of us to take a moment and stop, think, and lift up a worker whose path has crossed their life today. When you went to the grocery store or the gas station, or you ordered food to be delivered, you took an Uber or a Lyft or a taxi, you were at the airport, the train station, bus station, you were on the roads, and somebody worked to maintain those roads. You are sick, and somebody is tending to your care. You are in need of a hospital, and doctors, nurses, technicians, staff are there. We are community together. There's no one who survives solo. Every single person is connected. Every single person has gifts to offer. And it's up to us to work together so that everyone can be safe. Everyone can be paid a living wage, a wage that includes insurance, pension, time away. Time away is necessary to tend to family, to tend to self. It's also, I think, when we are at our creative best. And in order for things to continue to get better, we need to honor the sacred and holiness that is at the core of each and every person. And we need to take a look at the wages that we pay, the benefits that we offer. And one of the things I have found very challenging is while we lift up and praise companies who pay out high stock dividends or huge bonuses to the upper echelon, to the CEOs or others. But when you follow the organizational chart down to the very lowest level, you'll find that wages are not living wages. They don't include the best for those workers who are our neighbors, who are our siblings. And when you have full-time employees who need to rely on public assistance to make ends meet, why aren't we asking the corporations to pay more, to do more for all of their workers so that all may have life and have it abundantly? Why are we looking at those who need assistance instead of those who have the resources to pay their workers well and treat them well and honor them? Companies have done it. See, a CEO has taken a pay cut in order for all of the employees to be better off. And guess what? Everybody does better. Labor is a gift from God. The opportunity to work is a gift from God. The skill sets, the talents, the graces begin with God. And so why don't we make a decision today on this Labor Day weekend to be intentional about thanking those who we cross their paths at work, to looking at how they are supported, how they are paid, how the benefits they receive, how they are protected, how work is made safer. And let's stop pitting elements of society against each other, but instead find out how we can work together to be agents of justice, healing, and hope, to be builders of a beloved community where all have life and have it abundantly. Thank you for being with me this day. I hope and pray you've had a God moment, that there's something you've connected, that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt with every cell of their being that you are beloved and cherished. I invite you to come back later today at 9:30, and as we share in our second in the Survival in Love, a womanist preaching series. Our special guest is Reverend Roxanne Bryant. We give you thanks for all of you who support the ministries at work in and through Brown Deer United Methodist Church. And I'll share how you can give online. Thank you all for being with me today. I'll see you next Sunday, and I invite you to go forth empowered with the grace of God, the love of Christ, and the power of the Holy Spirit to be agents of justice, healing, and hope. Blessings.